once again rapscallions and rainiacs too. So you want to date a rapscallion? I am, of course, love. Okay, that's not a name. It's just love said over and over again. This is getting ridiculous. Last week, Tarantulas won the date, I guess, by showing up with a dang knife. Steve, how did that make you feel?
Oh, that was all on me. I misunderstood the rules, and honestly, we're laughing about it now. And to be honest, it was a really cool knife. Yeah, and I got to learn more about Tarantulas, her love of cutlery, and we watched Knives Out together. In my eyes, we both won.
Okay, well...
There is no question who the winner was, Steve. I won the competition. Our lovely time observing a movie film which was executed perfectly and had amazing commentary in the current American political climate and a very keen sense of style holds no bearing on the outcome of the dating contest.
Sure. Are you both ready for your final date, which is brought to you today by our sponsor, which was listed in Video Game of the Year magazine as a video game, Shadow Raid of Legends.
I am all about it.
I shall devour your soul, computer game.
That's the spirit. Now, you just open up Shadow Raid of Legends, which you can get on your mobile phone telephone, as well as other mobile devices.
How do we play?
The game is incredibly intuitive.
It is telling us to purchase things. I do not purchase. I take.
It seems like the gameplay is not about actual gameplay. It's just a means to push further purchases.
You can start out with a champion, just like this one that was modeled after me, your Scowl Heavyweight Champion.
Give me all medallions and tiaras now, video game!
You know, I don't think this is working out.
What?
Oh, no. I mean, we're great. I think.
I have been enjoying our dating competition. That much is true. Were I that woman from Knives Out, I would not vomit after making such a statement.
Oh, okay, so, would you maybe want to play a little game I was developing for a bit?
No, we should stay on Shadow Raid of Legends. They've just introduced a new tower called Big Boss Battles and Credit Card Charges.
Show me!
You know what? They keep trying to change my name. They keep trying to take that away from me. I'm Scowl Heavyweight Champion. Whatever. Let's just do whatever you want.
Okay, so just open up and so you're the spider and you have to catch the flies.
Puny flies! You are no match for tarantulas. I am the victor! Ha! I have beaten your game!
Yeah, you have.
I am the winner. Victory is mine. I have conquered your puny dating challenge.
I had a really good time these past few months, Tarantulas. To borrow a phrase from you, if I were that woman from Knives Out, I would not vomit if I were to say, I'd love to see you again.
Steve, are you challenging me to a rematch?
You know, I guess I am.
I am not one to fight those who I have already conquered. But you did convince me to watch the movie Knives Out. I beat your game, but you did develop that game to eventually be beaten. I am now drinking coffee, Steve. If I were the woman from Knives Out, I would not vomit if I were to say you are a formidable foe. I would be honored to have a rematch with you, Steve.
All right, it's a date. I'll see you soon.
You shall. And do not forget the name of Tarantulas, for she shall be the one who tramples your puny existence.
I don't think that I'll ever forget.
Never go past there. You know, you think he's a werewolf, I could get fooled. Wait, what? Hello? Hello? You need me to commentate on the next match? Well, of course. Wait. Well, where's Lanny? Doesn't he do that?
I know it wasn't a Tootsie Pop. This is my friend Wanda, and this is my friend Wanda.
Oh, you know, I get that. I've been there. All right, so when do you want me to do it? Now? You want me to... Oh, now! I see. All right, hang on. All right, rapscallions, are you ready? For our first ever in-person match of Digital Defenestration. Wow, oh my goodness, it's already... Tonight, I'm your host, London Jack, the original party werewolf. Now, tonight, you're going to see something very, very special. You're going to see a one-fall match. Woo! Now, you know what you're saying. You're saying, Jack, baby. What's a one-fall match? And you know what I say? That's a good question. Wait, I'm being told. Okay, yes. So, a one-fall match means that there's only one way, and then sort of two ways to get your opponent out. You can either, one, pin them for a count of three. Now, a pin is when you've got your opponent pressed to the ground, and the ref goes 1, 2, 3, boom! And you got to make sure their shoulders are touching the ground too. Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't count. They can just get right out of it. Psh, no problem. Now, the other way that you can get your opponent out is if you get them into a submission. That's like a chokehold. You got their arm bent in like, weird ways or something like that. And then they tap out. Or they pass out. And then the ref's like, you're done, mate. And then you stop. It's perfect. They tell you what to do. Now, there's a little something special about what Scowl does, yeah? Now, you'll see mats, of course, and the mats are for our safety as competitors, but you can always leave the mats if you need to. But you cannot leave the playing area. Foot off the mat? Perfectly fine. Keep going. Fight. Leaving the playing area? You're not even in the competition anymore. What you doing? Get back in the room. Yeah? Now that we've got that perfectly settled, we know all the rules, it's time to start our fight. Tonight, we have Camilla Helmont. You might remember her as that person who broke into my apartment, 3 times before we competed, and then I destroyed her. How you doing, Carmilla? Not so good. Been a whole year since you fought. A little over that. Yeah. Lots like that, sweet. And our other competitor, this mysterious yellow ponchoed person who we've been hearing so much about. And frankly, I'm just excited to see what they could possibly be. I mean, how do you fight in a poncho? You get so sweaty. I can't even manage to wear a full shirt whenever I fight. How do they fight in an entire fire poncho? Who knows? Well, I guess we'll find out tonight. So, without further ado, let's get this match started! Welcome to the stage, Carmilla Elmont. She's the dastardly oh, there she is. You know, my favorite part about Camilla is really that eyebrow. That bird just loves to make its own point on its own. You know, she broke into my house 3 times. Yeah, 3 different times. Like for the same match. You know, you think she could take a hint?
1 month ago, I challenged, I summoned, I called forth that which would pretend to fight monsters. A mysterious fighter. You wish to play Monster Hunter? Where are you? I don't see you. Show yourself, coward!
And now, welcome to the stage. They got caught. Can someone help them with that? Like, I think, why isn't anyone over there helping them with the curtain? Like, clearly, they are struggling with the curtain. No one's gonna, they're out, and it's the Fisher Fighter! What'd they say? Oh, no, I didn't get it.
No, I don't know what the hell you are. But I summoned the fighter. I summoned the one who defeated the dinosaur last week.
They defeated a dinosaur? That's pretty cool. Oh yeah, okay, it's big. It's like charades, I get this.
The one who has been coming through for the past 3 to 5 months. What the hell is that? Stop that!
Oh, and they got their own lighting person. I want my own lighting person. You think Scout give me that? Like, no, don't turn the lighting person. Bring it. You can come be my lighting person. Yeah, come on, sir.
I am Carmilla Helmont of the Helmont clan. My people, my family has fought monsters, has killed beasts for centuries. And you think that you can just show up? You think that you can just walk in here one day and say, "Oh, I'm the monster hunter now," do you? Yeah, it's very big. Trying to kiss
The fish! Gonna hit the fish!
I got it out of my face. You're putting it in my face. Now, look, if you really want this, if you really want to fight, you got it. Referee?
Oh, now Carmilla's got the Fisher Fighter riled. This is going to be a match of the century, folks. I don't know how the Fisher Fighter's going to hold up. And we're starting the match. Our wonderful ref, Angelica Fitzgerald.
Clean fight, no funny business. Blind ball, great. Fight!
And we start our match out. Carmilla is in a defensive position, but taking the lead. Fisher Fighter, was it a fish bar? And Carmilla goes down. Oh, okay, we got the lighting person back. All right, folks, if Carmilla's arm drops one more time.
Call it.
Oh, and she's out. We got a ref stoppage, and Fisher Fighter is the winner of our first in-person match in digital defenestration. Oh, and I'll get fishy kisses too. I should be the announcer more often. Fisher Fighting looking pretty happy with themselves. Let's see that fish bop again. Oh, and another. Oh, and we're gonna slow it down. Yes. You know, honestly, if I could make that my wallpaper on my phone, I'd do it. Oh, Camilla's coming back out of it.
Can we get a medical car?
All right, folks, and that's the match. Pretty impressive, if I do say so myself. You know, I thought it was going to go much longer than that, but you never can tell with these things, especially that new Fisher Fighter. That was pretty impressive. Taking Camilla out with one bop of a fish. Now, I'm going to have to learn how to fight with a fish. How do you train with a fish? I don't know, but we're going to kick it over to John Jacob, formerly the Jingle Hammer Schmidt, for our after-match coverage. Yeah.
Welcome back. It is my pleasure tonight to finally have an interview with someone who isn't suing me and isn't a piece of construction equipment that I think is a lawyer. Just a normal, ordinary human being with whom I can have an ordinary, normal human conversation.
Hello, the Jingly Hammer. Yes, it's me, it's the Fishy Fighter. And the Fishy! We coming here today to talk to you.
This is the worst job that anyone has had since they outlawed competitive suicide. All right, let's go. Fisher Fighter, a month ago you were on no one's radar, or should I say sonar, except with the wackadoodle conspiracy crowd. But then, earlier tonight, in your very first match, you defeated noted wackadoodle Carmilla Helmont with a single mighty slap. Who trained you to this incredible level of fitness and skill?
Oh, that's a good question. You see, when I was a little Fisher Fighter, just a tiny wee Fisher Fighter, I met the Fishy, and the Fishy deserves all of the credit. The Fishy trained me in the ways of the ocean, and then I trained the Fishy in the ways of the fighting. And so the Fishy trained me, and then I trained the Fishy, and then the Fishy trained me back a little more, and then when I learned to learn it, then I trained the Fishy, and then...
A recursive training regimen. Theoretically very powerful, but hard to achieve in practice. I believe the only other pair to master it was The Rock and Jimmy Carter.
Oh.
Do you plan to challenge them?
Oh, the Fishy Fighter would love to fight them. But you know, Jimmy Carter, he's always out building the houses. And I just don't think it's fair to fight people while they're building their houses. That's way too many things to do. You see, you're trying to build a house, and then you're fighting, and then there's a Fishy. And really, you gotta focus on one thing at a time. That's what I like to say. You say you gotta focus on one thing at a time, and then you focus on, like, the Fishy, or you focus on the house building, like a Jimmy Carter. Yeah. And who was the other person? Oh, it's The Rock. Oh, yeah, we fight The Rock. The Rock can bring it. But we can bring it, too.
Too true. As they say, one does the building, one does the cooking. I'm so sorry. Greg was supposed to set this commute. Greg? How do I get this call to stop interrupting the interview? Uh-huh. Answer the call and then hang up. Wow, that's really professional, Greg. Okay, if you'll give me a second, Fisher Fighter, I'm going to go ahead and answer the call.
That's not good.
Oh, sorry. It's fine. Someone just set up a ladder to mess with me. What did you say? So why didn't you say that during the deposition? You made me look like a fool in front of Judge Gina. Forgiveness? No. We're past forgiveness. You betrayed me. Apology not accepted. And you're not going to get away with it again. Because now I have a witness. And they'll back me up if you try to pull that I can't talk shtick.
Oh, yeah. The ladder speak? Wait, who's saying the ladder do to speak? The ladder isn't speaking just now. Wait, I mean, you can ask a Davishi. Davishi back you up. The ladder speak all the time, you know? It's a fishy fact.
Great. Thank you. This has been John Jacob, formerly the Jingle Hammer Schmidt, here with Fisher Fighter and their fish, and a ladder. Maybe it can talk.
Well, the narrative is getting unclear on that. You know, maybe the ladder talked one time, maybe the joke is not the ladder talked one time. It's getting kind of messy throughout all of that. Oh, is this thing on? Oh no, I was supposed to leave it on. I was supposed to leave it off so Jingly Hammer could do his thing line, and then... Oh, you say I'm making it worse. Bye-bye, the people!
This is the worst job.
The name's McConnors. Rhonda McConnors, and I was in the middle of my first big case. We weren't talking about a briefcase here, or even one of those rolly suitcases with the little wheels and pop-out handles. You know the ones. No. We were talking big, like really big, like those old-timey really big cases with the locks on them. Big enough you can hide bodies in them, yeah. Hiding bodies. The Rhonda McConnors way. I never expected the case of the butt emailer to be my first big break into the world of detective work. But here I was, knee-deep in the butts case. The untoppable Rhonda McConnors versus the internet. This dame had approached me earlier in the week. She went by the name of Luna Lovely. Had asked me to find her mysterious emailer who said nothing but butts. I wasn't sure at first, since it didn't require my very specific skill set of bashing people's faces in and destroying the competition, but she talked me into it. Yeah, never could turn down a dame with a great smile. Once I had finally discovered what this email thing was, all I had to do was receive it.
What, you're not gonna print? You wanna go, punk? You think you're so special? Cause you've got inkjets, you know what? So does Squid and Octopus, and if you don't print by the time I count to 3, I'm gonna be having printer calamari for lunch. 1, 2, 3.
I knew it was time to look for the people who do things, who might have done things, who did the things that might have done this thing. You know the people I'm talking about. The people you look for who could have done it. The suspects. That's the word. Nobody keeps words from Rhonda, not even Rhonda. Anyways, I decided to start with the most likely suspects. The only people I knew.
So why'd you send this email, huh?
Rhonda, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about.
send lots of emails, but they all stay in my computer, and I just don't think any of them could get into your hands like that. Also, because I probably didn't send one to you because I've been really busy training for Miss Pocono.
Oh, you're trying to pull one over on me? Smooth. Real smooth. I know it was you because you have a computer. And a butt.
Well, you're right. I do have both of those things. But I don't think my butt could send an email or even get on the computer, because how would it even type? Like, I haven't been to bar class yet. That's after this. That's why I'm wearing this outfit, because you gotta...
The what class?
You know, bar class. Missy says it's all the rage. See, you have to... I'll just back up so you can see. So you bend, and then you keep everything tight in your core. So you don't want to be like bending or bending. You just want to bend and straighten. And I'm only taking a couple of classes, so I'm still learning. But that's the basic gist of it, is it's a lot of bending and straightening, which is really what working out is. Like if you have weights, you're just bending and straightening, right? So, I mean, but if that's all it is, then maybe I'm not giving enough credit to my butt. And maybe, well, look, here's the keyboard. And just, okay, so if I just give it enough support, right? Because then it can be specific enough to, oh, but that's my back. This is my butt. Is this how sentences work?
Enough!
The first suspect was a dud. But I knew at some point one of them would crack.
No.
No.
I just do camera stuff.
So far, everyone had been pretty tight-lipped, but my last suspect? I had a good feeling about this one.
Why is it all black and white?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, isn't this the second episode of WandaVision? Isn't it supposed to be in color, like, you know, that show Wanda?
Nope. That's not... Never mind. You got a problem. Take it up with my agent.
Rhonda, you haven't got an agent.
Quiet!
All right, all right, all right, all right.
What were we doing?
You were gonna ask some questions.
I had some questions for you, and you are gonna answer every last one of them.
Sure. That's usually how asking questions goes.
Number 1. Where were you on the night of the 15th?
In my house?
Huh. A likely story, but sure, in your house. Do you have a computer? Do ya? Huh?
Rhonda, how do you think I'm talking to you?
So, if you have a computer, that must mean you have the email. From this email, you can send emails just like this one!
So, that's a piece of paper.
Look at the email of your guilt and despair.
If you wanna find this butt emailer so badly, why don't you just, you know, hack into it?
What did you call me?
No, you're not the hack. That's not that. I mean, hack like the verb.
Rhonda has no time for semantics. Only triumph.
Okay. I'll hack like, break into. Like, yeah, you gotta like break into the internet and then you find out where the email came from. That easy.
That's it?
It is?
That was it. My perfect angle. Hang on.
No!
This was it. My perfect angle. The direction from which I'd tackle this case, put it into a full arm bar and have it tapping out in no time. Rhonda McConnors was done talking to people, what with all their answers and critical thinking. No. We were past that. I had finally created the perfect plan to find the mysterious butt emailer. Rhonda McConnors was going to break into the internet.
Tune in next time to find out on RhondaVision.
So, he survived.
For the moment. Steve has proved more cunning and resourceful than I gave him credit for. I am impressed, to say the least.
You must really like him.
The only thing I truly like is
The blood of your enemies, yeah. But if he's still alive and you're still talking to him, then doesn't it...
Do not infer anything.
Okay.
He merely surprised me.
I ordered more of that coffee you like. Please don't eat the delivery guy.
Hazelnut, chocolate, and a hint of citrus.
Well, that sure was a thing that happened. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you just want to watch Ryan Johnson's Knives Out? I mean, I can tell you right now, Shadow Raid of Legends is gonna be pissed. So, maybe consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. And help us out. Help us pay our artists by contributing to our PayPal. We're definitely not gonna make any money on the Shadow Raid of Legends now, so why not? I have, of course, been your Scowl Heavyweight Champion, April Rain. Don't you forget that. Saying, have a great night. Stay scowly, my friends.
Next month's episode is pretty fancy. Because you might know it's a little thing called Pride. And here at Scowl we got loads of pride, you know? And there's a very special open challenge from April Rain. Wonder who's going to take her on for that one, And we have a continuation of RhondaVision. Will she learn who the butt emailer is? Will it ever be in color? Find out next time on Scowl Digital Defenestration. Defenestration. Did we get it? We got it, right? Yeah. All right, bye. Fisher fighter. You know, that was pretty impressive, taking Carmilla out in one hit of a fish. I'd like to see what else that fish can do. That was a little too sexy. I'm going to take that over again. I was like, oh, I wonder what else that fish can do. Nope, that's clearly floating. Jack, you crossed the line. All right. Oh, perfect. Jack, quit flirting with fishes. There's plenty of other fish in the sea. God damn it. Anyway, focusing.
All right. Welcome, rapscallions. What else can that fish do? We'll find out eventually.
Thank you so much for watching. We are now transitioning into our talk back with myself, Lauren Elizabeth, and also, of course, with me, as always, are Ashley and Rachel. I had a 50-50 shot of introducing you in the right order. And sometimes I luck out magically. I'm like, why, yes. This is planned. I have control over this. I don't. I'm just here to make questionable jokes from my couch. So, this month, it's just the three of us. Unfortunately, we had some scheduling conflicts with our other talkback guests. So we're going to mainly be focusing this month on talking through some of the broader production aspects and a lot of the topics which are of interest based on this month's episode. Stuff like character creation and long story booking, and also, of course, filming fights in person. Thank you, Rachel, for doing that exactly on cue. So, if we could just go around, as always, names, pronouns, and your role in Scowl Fight.
Hi, I'm Ashley Lauren Rogers. I am the creator, the head writer, and the champion of Scowl, because that's how it works when you start a totally phony baloney wrestling organization.
Well, I'm Rachel Weekly. My pronouns are they, them. We have a cat joining us this evening as well. Go! I'm a line producer, performer, a writer, and current commentator for Scowl.
Wonderful. And I, of course, am Lauren Elizabeth. I am a line producer, writer, performer, and editor for Scowl Digital Defenestration. Digital Defenestration.
Digital.
This is what happens when I edit Fisher Fighter. I'm like, hello. I'm like, no, go back. Go back. So, speaking of the Fisher Fighter, I would love to discuss whether or not the Fisher Fighter is vegan. A question posed to us from It's Tyler Riley.
I think so. I think the Fisher Fighter understands their role as an ally to the oceanic populations of fishies.
So, like, no chickens, no eggs, no honey, but, like, yeah, wow, okay.
Oh,
yeah.
not vegan. I'm sorry, no meat. No meat. The bees make the honey anyways. Might as well eat it.
All right. So, vegetarian.
Vegetarian.
Cool.
Not pescatarian, for sure.
One day someone's like, are you a pescatarian? Fisher Fighter goes, why, yes, of course. I don't eat the fish. And they're like, I don't.
That's the other way. Okay.
Pointing!
So, I would love to, so now that we're on the topic of the Fisher Fighter, and I'm not ignoring Tyler Riley's second question, I just think it'll segue so nicely into a later segment as well. We've had the introduction of the Fisher Fighter finally after months and months of discussions. We also recently introduced a new character in the WandaVision series, and just in general, I think Scowl has seen a rapid exponential growth in, to use a business term, in terms of characters. And so I'd love us to all talk about a little bit about character creation, what that means for us, how some of these characters come to fruition, what your experiences has been developing them throughout, specifically for the digital medium and through digital defenestration over the past year.
So first off, to use some terms that Lauren will understand, escrow, rapid growth,
synergy.
Synergy, no. Yeah. But yeah, like I kind of like, I keep joking that I keep wanting to create these like super like doom and gloom sad boy, I believe is a term that I keep coming up with characters, and I keep pitching them, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. Yeah. What if I also have a rubber chicken? It's like, yeah.
Don't tempt me.
So you're like a demon who comes from hell and is out here to destroy everyone. It's like, yeah, I like that. But like, what if I also do cartwheels and like paint pictures? And it's like,
Knitting.
sure.
The demon's got to knit.
The demon has to knit. Like, that's kind of the way it works.
Knit
Is I'll come
one,
up with
pearl
these, like,
two. Knit one, pearl two.
and I can't say no to this because you'll do that, and I'll be like, yeah, okay, I guess that's what we're doing.
What we have discovered, for me at least, that the way to make Ashley say yes to something I want is to do it in an absolutely absurd voice. But yeah.
Sometimes I just need to see it in practice. Is really how it works. Honestly, it's like,
That is
okay,
also
great.
true.
You
I
just need to take it
remember-
for a test run.
I remember pitching Alana in the beginning, like the very, like what eventually became Alana, when we were building the evening gown match for the original Self-Isolation Devastation. And I was like, well, I kind of want to play a bit of an idiot, and I'm not sure how to work that in, but I also really wanted her to be a baby face because I already had Tarantula Ass. And I was like, what if she's this like karaoke queen? Is that too much? And then a week later, I was like, what if it was that she's a former pageant queen and her talent was karaoke? And Ashley was like, this seems better. And then finally figuring out the voice and the tempo of her like live while writing out the beats for what became the evening gown match. That it's just, she has a story for everything and nothing makes sense. And it's all, she's just trying her best.
Yeah, I think that kind of hits on a lot too, because I know, like you mentioned, like, oh, I initially wanted to play an idiot, and it just kind of like, I'm always like, oh, when I hear that, it's like, well, let's find the in, because I don't want to create like characters that are just pure idiots, and like, like that just feels like, no, we gotta find the in, and like when you came to me with the in of like, no, she's just trying her best. It's like, I feel that people can get behind that, people can feel that, like, yeah.
Well, that's why it's funny. That's why you listen.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't anyone really listen to Alana?
I mean, but you want to, because you're like, okay, she's on muscles. How to muscle? Okay, she's figuring out how muscles. Okay, this is where we're okay, and like you feel smart because you catch on, or you suddenly see where she's going. And like,
I think that's what makes the reaction shots that it particularly Tyler always gives. Bless Tyler, we have never actually recorded together yet, but he always gives such great reaction shots too. I think he particularly has been subjected to a lot of Alana rants, and they don't exist when he's reacting. He just gives a lot of great reactions, and it's always like,
yeah,
oh,
that's right.
Okay, she has logic. Wait, no, what? How? Like, oh, it's still go. Oh no! Like you try to root for her, and then it's just like, oh, she's, oh god. Speaking of Jacob Jinglehammer reacting to things, I'd love to recount. We've talked about it before on talkbacks, but always very vaguely. And I'd love to recount another time when Tyler has been subjected to sudden character creation.
it is just absolutely like, it's such a quintessential, for me, it's such a quintessential, like how how like a fundamental thing in Scowl suddenly arose out of like a bunch of mishaps that we just fell in love with. Like we were auditioning for Laddermageddon, and Tyler came in to do the announcer part, and I think he was the first one in for the announcer. And Nathan, who was directing at the time, and Ashley, who was in the room, was like, Rachel, can you go up and be interviewed? And I was like, yeah. And I'm getting up there. I'm ready to be Jack, because clearly, if you're going to have a fun time and just like off the cuff interviewing someone, Jack's the one. Jack's going to have a good time. You're going to have a good time. It'll be great. And I get up there and I'm prepping. And Nathan's like, Rachel, do you want to do your new character? And this new character was not actually anything. This was Nathan, Ashley, and I riffing on a meme about gender neutral terms for workers. So like a postman was a postal worker. A fireman was a firefighter. And a fisherman would become a fisher fighter. And we're like, oh, that's hilarious. Like, do they wear like the full get up? You know, maybe they fight with fish. Oh, maybe they're like Swedish fish. Oh, they're definitely like the Swedish chef meets the Gordon fisherman meets Aquaman. So when Nathan was like, Rachel, you want to try out your new character? I was just kind of like, here we go. And it was like the most rudimentary, like, I'm trying out voices and I had an idea. And I watched Tyler's soul leave his body a bit. Because I just like dove in and I'm like, oh, defeated.
He tried real hard too. He was
Yo,
like,
kudos to him, because the only person in that room who he had met or had any idea what this thing was myself. And I come at him with this. And he fucking rocked it. No, I watched it happen, Tyler. I didn't know how to save you. I was too deep. I was too deep.
Because I'm watching this too, and I'm like, there is no way we're getting a real, actual like account of the talent this person has. So it was like, let's go back to the original idea where you interviewed Jack.
And then he knocked it. He was great.
Oh yeah, he was fantastic. That's why we brought him in. We created Jinglehammer for him. Like, So
I also distinctly remember, I think for me, character creation is also always a process of like trying, like what you were saying, Ashley, of trying things out in the room. Because I remember when I got cast in Lettermageddon originally, the character who became Tarantulas had a very different conceit. And then I just like yelled one day in rehearsal, and you were like, so I was talking with Nathan. We really like the direction you're going in, but it's also very different.
So the character we pitched you, because it was while we were filming that we kind of made the decision. Like I pitched this like Katniss Everdeen. I wanted this to be a baby face. I wanted this to be a character people could get behind. Like, hey, you're like this Katniss meets Assassin's Creed. You can do all this crazy, like, pardon the language, but like you can do all this like amazing acro stuff. Let's leverage that. And then you come in full Scorpion. Get over here. And it was just like, well, we gotta do something else. Like, that's not Katniss. Like, and
I love that we were both at one point potentially Katniss.
It's true.
Same.
And what we got out of Katniss was Tarantulas and Fisher Fighter. Our powers combined.
And I think it was one of those things also
Katniss.
where...
Okay.
And I think part of what happened with Tarantulas also, and like the scorpionness of it, was I definitely came into the room and I was like, okay, acro stuff. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know much about this wrestling stuff, but I know I like kind of know how to not be an idiot in pitch combat. And so like, I'm just going to be like a badass, and that will deal with my imposter syndrome. And like, I was like, and then I think talking through it, I think also it was really interesting to me because I was like spending so much time on like TV tropes, trying to be like, all right, final girl, what's a good final?
That's right.
And so much, because that was the original conceit of Tarantulas, because it was like a final girl trope. And the unfortunate thing was like I couldn't quite latch on to anything that made final girl, like that was specific about final girl, other than being the final person. And I was like, fair.
Yeah, Yeah.
These are things I did not tell you. And had I told you, we probably would have had a different direction. But it was I think my favorite text I got from you in the lead up to Lattermageddon was like, so we've determined that this is different and okay, but not what we meant. I would love to talk about, in some ways, though, one of the other questions that came up in the chat, which is, what is the difference between scowl and theater, and is there one? Because I think in some ways, we talk a lot about wrestling, obviously. A lot of us also have theater backgrounds separately, and I think in terms of character creation, that's another way. But just in general, even when it comes to writing and everything like that, and just structurally, what are the differences or similarities that you find between scowl and traditional theater?
Yeah, I mean, from the onset, the whole idea was to sort of take the storytelling of wrestling, but not the actual physical style of wrestling, and use stage combat as a means to do storytelling, because I really think that there is a way to tell stories with stage combat that a lot of people don't think about. And again, like, there's a lot of people that will equate a lot of like, oh, wrestling is stage combat. And I love wrestling. I've always loved wrestling, and I love the storytelling aspect of it. And so how can we sort of meld those two styles? So because of that, there is a sort of off the cuff nature to it. There is a lot of like, the initial idea was we would do a live show, stage combat, and then edit it and release it to people. Then the pandemic happened, and it kind of became more of like, we go web series first, so we do sketches, and then when we can eventually fight, like we did the mime fight and we did a couple of other things, but like really we couldn't do an in-person fight, which I know that there's another question in the queue here that we'll get to later. But the like, when we're finally now able to sort of get back into it, it really does feel a lot more like the style of what a normal theater show is, which is the 3-act structure if we're looking at traditional, the 3 to 5 act structure where there's rising action, and then it reaches its point, and then the protagonist learns a lesson about themselves, and then they change, and then it's the fallout. And so with this, a lot of those like, oh yeah, it's.
I've been trying to think of an excuse, Rachel, for months. Don't worry.
We need to be like old-timey announcers together.
I think that's what it was. That was the pitch. I was like, I know I've pitched an old-timey radio, and I couldn't remember what it was, and it was to commentate. Now I remember. Thank you, Rachel. Anyway, your story, Ashley.
But yeah, and I think that particularly the way that we structure like a full night of theater show is like that, but at the exact same time, it is still very different because there's a lot of like little shows, and it's a lot of like little smaller stories and long form booking and this idea that's going into it where we're looking at a long story that has history that doesn't even exist, but we'll tell you exists, and you need to know. Like, you don't need to know. We'll feed it to you so that you can come in and have fun and play with us. But at the same time, just know, yeah, there's a whole long backstory of all of everything.
I will say, I think, especially since we haven't done a show with an audience in a long time, what makes Scowl different to me from traditional theater is how much the audience has a role in the show itself. Because like, we can decide all the things we want backstage or like beforehand. Like, we were doing Cry for the Moon in Cincinnati. And we're building it. We're like, okay, clearly Carmel is the heel. She's breaking into Jack's house. It's terrible. I'll bring that up again 3 times.
How many times is it, Rachel?
It might be 3. It might be. I'm not sure.
I wasn't sure either. Thank you for the clarification.
So, like, we're clearly setting it up. Jack's like very personable, ready to party, and Carmilla's like intense and breaking into houses. So like, clearly we've got like a heel and a face set up. And we get in and we're doing the fight, and we even have like Carmilla hits the ref at one point, like entirely heel move. And we're going along, and at one point Jack gets a hit, and it's like a nice hit. So I hit, and I stand up to look at the audience to be like, yeah, did you see that? And I got booed. like full on, like, and it was one of the most one of the few points that like the audience like fully got into it and was like, oh yeah, we can talk back to you. They started booing me and I was like, oh. And I like in traditional theater, that would be like your Achilles heel. Like, oh no, you fucked up the story.
Yeah.
But it's such a gift in this. Like the moment that happened, I was like, oh, I suddenly understand this character so much better. Because yeah, you might not like me, but we're gonna do this anyway. Like we're gonna be here and have this good time anyways. And that became such a defining point, is that we're, you know, traditional theater, it's just so much, the story is more insular in a lot of ways. And the story and the characters are living and breathing and they're reacting off of real world happenings. And that's a big difference for me.
There's a saying that a lot of wrestlers talk about. I'm going to butcher it completely, but the idea is that the only bad reaction is silence. So even if you're going out there and you're like the biggest baby face in the world, if people are booing you, they care, and that still means something.
I was thinking something similar as the, you know, off of what Rachel was saying, is that like in traditional theater, like the goal is to communicate the story that you meant to effectively, and to like to make sure that that is, you know, like if I am meant to be, if you are meant to be the hero and then you get booed at the end, it like you failed in some way, like you didn't tell the story correctly. When in fact, in wrestling and in Scowl specifically, it is that like, okay, but if they connected, even if it's not how you intended, you can then pivot, or you can shift, or you can just own it and be like, we'll fix this later, or not, you know? So one of the other things that has been alluded to a lot this evening, and that I do want to make sure we have a lot of time to talk, because I think we all have a lot of feelings about, is that we had our first in-person match since the mime fight, although the mime fight was like very socially distanced, but we had our first fight in the same space, in person, full contact. More to come in the coming months. Stay tuned, y'all.
I swear there'll be real matches too, not just getting hit with a fish.
Real good.
So I'd love to talk a little bit then about what it was like from a logistical perspective, because I know, especially Rachel, you dealt a lot with sort of having to coordinate what that even means, to even like what it even means to get into the same space logistically, before we pivot over into like what it actually felt like for all of us to do the thing.
It's real interesting. Like, I learned so much booking spaces in the past like couple months or so. And it's one of the things I'll say is that like it's a scramble right now, because no one quite knows how to do this. So everyone is attempting to do their best, but also trying to do something that we've literally never done before. So there was a lot of like, we'd start having conversations with the place about getting a space, and then they'd try to like book in the normal time, in the before times that you take the book, like a couple days. And I was like, we can't book in a couple days, because I have 7 people who need to get COVID tests, and COVID tests take 3 to 5 days if this is the kind you want. And like, thankfully, the COVID tests are so much more accessible now, and things are starting to happen rapidly, because it would not have been possible. It would not have been safe, even with like even with vaccinations happening and us getting vaccinated. If we had not been able to be like, okay, everyone, we need to get it by like tomorrow. So yeah, it was a lot of, it's not unlike juggling, a lot of keeping a lot of balls in the air and making sure that everyone was given enough time to think about things, but also not so much time that it's like overwhelming or easy to forget about. Like, it's just, the process is both extremely condensed because everything has to happen right before we're in the space, but also super elongated because spaces have to book so much farther out now. And there's so many more things to get in place before we get in there. So yeah, and it's all going to change too as vaccinations go up and testing does other things. And I think we're just in for a while of it needing to be very fluid, and every space is different too.
Yeah.
Thanks
Like,
for
I
talking
know-
about that.
Yeah.
And I think, Ashley, you also dealt specifically. We have a couple of fun. We have a couple of fun matches with some familiar faces, but also with some guest stars upcoming. And I think you had to coordinate that aspect of it in terms of, you know, I think both sort of deciding what fights were going to be filmed and what was most efficient and highest priority, but also, you know, coordinating dates with talent that we don't usually work with, but that we really wanted to feature coming soon to a theater near you. So I wonder if you could talk about it from that aspect as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the logistics is very much a like, we don't know what a space is going to say until we can get it confirmed. And again, like this idea of like, okay, well, we only book like a short amount of time out was really difficult because like we have to plan like months in advance because people, especially for some of the folks that we have coming up, they've needed to take off work so that they can come into the city so that we can have this, like, we can do this filming and we can film it all in a day. We can make it work. But I know like one of the most, I'm going to say the most humbling thing for me was creating multiple stories that I was so sure we were going to get done in a certain period of time that even if we were tired, even if we were like, okay, we got to amend it because we don't want to hurt one another, we want to make sure that we're being safe, I was so sure we were going to be able to get to. And it just did not work in that sense, and it was very like it was also a sense of like, okay, we need to make sure that we're following their rules, and we need to make sure that we are being safe with one another, not only from a fight aspect but from a socially distanced aspect. Like all of our fights that you're going to see for a very long time, regardless of what mask mandates are going to be, are masked because we all wanted to be safe in the space. And even though particularly at the time most of us, if not all of us, were completely vaccinated and past that 2-week point, we wanted to make sure everyone was just playing it safe and just being safe. So it was also very interesting to sort of work in a mask at that time as well and figure out like what are the specifics. So at least on my end, a lot of it was that like coordination of like, when do we know what information that we know? How can we get people blocked off? How can we get them that information as soon as humanly possible so that we can bring in interesting new talent for people to see and work with, so that we can learn and sharpen our skills off of people that we've never fought in before. So
it was also unique, and there was a learning curve for sure, because like booking space right now is such a premium. New York is always that way, but we couldn't like, oh, let's book Shetler for a bunch of rehearsals before we go film. You know, that doesn't exist. We can't do that without like a million more times of prep. So we built everything and filmed it in a day, which like fucking kudos to us, because that shit is hard. But I think that was made I think that made it wonderful and unique in a lot of ways, because there was so much room to pivot. There was so much room to be creative with everyone, instead of having to just go in with an already built fight that we tried to learn off of videos or something.
Mm-hmm.
It made it much more alive in a lot of ways. But it definitely was a learning curve, especially that first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think pivoting into like what it felt like in the room, I think that was the thing that was both the most exciting and most nerve-wracking thing for me personally was, you know, like once we had the space and we had the tests and everything, and I was like, okay, the sort of, for me, the one unknown was like where my body was going to be and where my skills were going to be. Because I think by the time when we first filmed, I had basically been about 14 months out from the last time I had done any like serious acro or physical exertion, if you will. You know, like I have been, and what I had done was like intermittently doing essentially what we ended up doing, which is a day-long film shoot in my building to do prop stuff, and my body was always freaking destroyed afterwards. But sort of going into the fights knowing that I was going to be so excited, because I think especially with Scowl, the thing I've always said was like Scowl was this perfect, you know, amalgamation of all the things that I had trained for and that I ended up being interested in with, you know, both circus and acting and storytelling and combat, but then never really found a way to make a smoothie of that into a project. And so there was the promise of like, I'm going to finally get to do that thing that I wanted to do for like years. But then also like, I haven't done anything for a year. And what am I going to do like mentally and emotionally? What am I going to do if I try to go for that first trick and I don't have it anymore because I've been sitting on my ass for a year? And I remember even warming up in the space, I was like trying to like limber up. And like I did like a squat or something. And I have an old undiagnosed knee injury, and my knee twinged. And like we hadn't started yet. I was just stretching and I squatted and my knee twinged. And I was like, Jesus Christ, no. I was like, I can't take this today. And it ended up being fine. That was the only twinge that I got. This is not me quietly being like, I filmed injured all day. But like there was that moment of like, what am I going to do if I don't have this? And if I've lost this part of me that I was so much of my identity and that I've been really grieving not being able to stretch for a year, what am I going to do if I'm not where I think I'm going to be based on like muscle memory and just innate knowing things? And then it turned out to be fine. The end of that very long monologue is it turned out to be fine. And it was like such a relief. And I remember texting a friend of mine afterwards because he was like, how'd it go? And I was like, it was fine. I still had everything. And it was like, you know, I'm exhausted and I basically like was sore and couldn't like, I had sort of like stick manned my way around my apartment for a week, but like it happened. And it was such a relief and it was so fulfilling to finally get to do the thing that I felt like I had promised Ashley I could do. And to be like, no,
I'd seen the videos. I knew you could do it.
Yeah. And I was like, no, but it happens. And like to get to actually like be in a space and even discovering moments live, you know, in the space of like, oh, right, Ashley's like a foot taller than I am. How do we work this in? And like we had sort of pre-planned it, but then we even got to the space and we're like, all right, so this is what's going to happen. And I was like, you need to come down here. Like, I was like, I cannot,
I remember
this
that.
is what it says, but I cannot do the thing. Like,
I remember that during planning because we kept saying things and then one of us would be like, we got to think about the fact that we're short, Lauren.
Yeah.
We got to think about the fact that we're short.
Yeah.
I also, because just to like not to tell stories out of turn, but like you and I kind of like hit each other a little bit, like the very first thing, because I was so like like I was so, and this always happens, and I always try and like catch myself, and like oftentimes because I'm fighting Rachel will kind of like call me out and be like, hey, slow the fuck down. And I'll be like, right, yep, But like, the first thing we worked was you getting flipped over me, and we'll show you that next week. That's no spoiler. But like, a thing happens, and I sent you sailing, and just like, boom, faceplant. It was like, well, this is a great way to start. And then later on, though, and I know it wasn't intentional, but later on, then I'm not going to say the move that we tried, but we tried a move, and it was like one that we'd been building up, and we were doing just fine, and then like all of a sudden, boom, need a face. I was like, well, we're even.
And what was
circle.
What was funny to me about that particular moment also is that like in acro, there's this idea of like koalaing, and also just generally like and I think this is true in a lot of different things. It's like if something's going wrong, you just like freeze and assess, because sometimes if you go, oh my God, it makes things worse. And so like the knee to the face happened, and then I just froze in this position while you were like, and then Rachel's like, hold, like, let's hold. And I'm like, yeah, I'm holding. Like, I'm not going nowhere. Yeah. And I think it was like the full life cycle of everything that is both wonderful, but also everything that we talk about with stage combat of like, it's really fulfilling and like physical performance, and it's thrilling and it's exciting to be able to do the stuff and to play with your friends, but also like there is also inherent danger in everything that we do. And I think especially once you start, and like the more stuff you integrate into it, the more just inherent baked in risk that there is. And so not to say that we forgot how to be safe over the past year. I think we did a phenomenal job over all the days that we filmed, but it was just like, oh, right. Like I do still have this, and it does still have danger. And like, I am still okay, I think was the biggest triumph walking out of that first day, especially.
I come with a martial arts background and a sparring background, and like, you never want the hits to happen, but I'm always a little more confident in how things are going to go after we get like at least one little clip, because then we know.
Yeah, you
like,
know,
we
it was like you went over the line, you came
the
back.
line. And hopefully when we have found the line, it has not been bad. It's just been like, oh, but then we know. Like, even for myself, like I'll take the first clip and I'll be like, cool. Found it. Remembered that there is danger. Great.
And I think in that particular story also with Ashley and I, it was interesting. It is interesting that it happened on both sides of the parabola. Like the first hit happened, like I think in the very beginning, and it was like, it was, I think maybe the third move in the whole sequence. And then the second hit happened, I think after like several hours of going basically nonstop and being on our feet and being like, oh, let's go. Like it did happen at those key moments when it's like, when you're not fully warmed up mentally. And then when you're like starting to get tired, were the two moments where I was like, yep, that's where that is. That's where my face is. What was it like fight captaining for you, Rachel? Because I think you ended up fight captaining two of the big fights that we have upcoming. What was it like doing that again?
It's so exciting. I talked about it a little bit before, but like building the fights to get filmed right then and there is really exciting, because my favorite thing is it's a little like tossing a ball around. Like I'm like, oh, this needs to happen. Here you go. What do you think? And this person's like, oh, well, I like hitting with my knees. And you toss it to the next person, and the next person's like, oh, it'd be really cool if I like took a knee hit to my face. And then the ball comes back to me, and I'm like, oh my God, I know exactly how to do this. And then like that just continues happening for the sections, and you get weirder and weirder shit, but it ends up growing so organically that it's so much fun. Because we go in with like a skeleton, but it's definitely not like I built fights for a Romeo and Juliet in Ohio, and that one I came in with every move set and like possible switches, because it was like, it was working with high schoolers, it was working with folks that don't have the experience in this, but being able to walk into a room where like we might not all have the same background in physical stuff, but we all have our own pieces of knowledge to put in this soup.
Smoothie. To put in the smoothie.
Put in the smoothie. Scal smoothie hits the spot. But because we all have our own things to put into the smoothie, and we can all understand how to work with one another, it ends up making such fun stuff. And it's and fighting for camera is so interesting because now you get to think about angles and you get to think about like what's the stuff we could never do if we had to cover air from every angle. Oh, does this move only work from this one tiny little direction? Great. Jess, who was our amazing camera person, would be like, Jess, you have to stand right here and then move now. And we could get that. And it made this extra level of magic happen.
And I think watching the filmed fights that we've done, because we did one a year ago and then we started doing them a couple months ago again. And I think that's the thing when I watch the footage that I notice the most is like what we've learned about filming in the past year even. And like what we've learned about how to get impacts and how to sell impacts. She says not having seen any of the new footage. But like watching old footage, I'm like, oh, I think we would have done that differently now, and not in a bad way, but just in like we've learned a lot, and I think we've learned how to utilize our people also. Because some of what you're talking about, like really, I think for me is gratifying as a performer because it means I get to like fill in gaps with things that I know I can do, but also things I know I want to do, and be like, oh, we can put in that cool thing. Which has always been my frustration when working with people that don't know what to do with me. They're like, just punch someone. I'm like, but I could, okay.
Oh, I'll punch someone.
Yeah. With my face. So
I think part of the other thing, just really quickly, is like on the technical end, like before we were limited technically because like we'd have my camera and that's it. And now like multiples of us have similar cameras or we have other cameras, so we can make like one camera that looks much better be like the main camera, and then like the other ones are just for coverage, so that if there is something like, oh, you know, the good camera, you can see there's too much air, we can go from a different angle and just like, all right, cool, I'll just use that angle. So
totally,
it's And
that's not to knock that fight. I think it works for that fight, but there's definitely moments where I was like, my face. It is so far away. So we've talked a lot about characters. We've talked a lot about Scowl and what it's been like. I would love for us to tidy up with one last question, also from It's Tyler Riley, who's made my job a hell of a lot easier tonight. So thanks, Tyler. You're great. Who are your favorite wrestlers on the roster and why? I'm adding the end why because I always like to.
Before we answer that, I will clarify. As weird and as specific as it is, we don't call ourselves wrestlers. We are fighters. There is a lot of specific reasons why that is. Many of them being that what we're doing is slightly different from pro wrestling. There are differences at the same time. I can't necessarily jump into what they are because I don't have them off the top of my head, other than we are really doing a lot with angles. We're doing a lot with the stage. We're doing a lot of things that like when you actually, because we've worked with multiple people who have experience doing pro wrestling during this, and a lot of it is this like you really do hit, but you learn where to hit so that it doesn't hurt as much or at all. You learn to do a lot of these things, whereas like what we're doing is pure stage combat where you're not taking real hits, and if you do, they're very calculated in an even more specific way that is in no pain and all about the angles. So as weird of a distinction as that is that I have to completely make, I just want to throw out, like, we don't necessarily call our folks, we try not to call our folks wrestlers because they are doing slightly different. But
no pain, all gain.
Yeah, Tyler, come on, buddy. No.
We're gonna make you interview the Fisher Fighter again now.
Yeah.
The entirety of next month's episode now, and it's all Tyler's fault. It's not. We have so much other things next month. But anyway, actually answering the question, who's your favorite fighter on the roster?
Go, Ashley.
I gotta think about that. Like, I mean, of course, I'm drawn to a lot of the ones that I've created. Like, but you know, because like you know, oh, I created them. I love them. But I think
Let's
honestly,
do it this way. Who's your favorite to portray and who's your favorite to
Okay.
watch? Let's do a twofold. Because I'm
I
the same
think,
way,
like,
because I'm
yeah,
an asshole.
like part of me loves April because I have so many ideas for where April is going to go that we haven't even talked about yet or seen, and a lot of like this like hosting of So You Want to Date a Rapscallion really gave me a lot of perspective on who April is.
Just drunk the whole time.
I was pulling a
like
lot from-
highball glass.
So I was like, I was kind of pulling from like, yeah, you think? Go on.
I was gonna say, I think April was just contractually obligated the whole time.
Yeah, like so,
Is how I interpreted it.
I was pulling a
Both
lot from
Ashley
Hangman
and
Adam
April
Page
were
there.
contractually obligated in that moment.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. The intent was not April. The intent was someone else was going to host that, and then things went down, and it was like, all right, we gotta do this. So April jumped in, and it was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna drink some whiskey. And so I was pulling a lot from Hangman Adam Page and a lot of other like folks that I love when I think of actual wrestlers. But like for me, I think the one that I love to portray the most is actually Carmilla. she's
You always have so much fun with
like-
her.
I try so hard to make her this like I am evil, and like I love doing the laugh, but at the exact same time,
Pumpkin costume.
I think the pumpkin costume was what did it. Honestly, I can't wait for there to be live people because I am definitely going to bring that pumpkin costume out again. I just don't know what we're going to do with it.
I think it's that Carmilla needs to have lost a bet to somebody, probably
Yeah.
Jack, and that's why Carmilla shows up in the pumpkin costume.
Maybe Jack just plays a prank on her, and she's like, "You told me this
Oh, it's the
was
Halloween
you told
thing.
me." Yeah, it's just every Halloween, Carmilla comes out in the pumpkin costume.
Yo, no, oh, I just had an idea, but I can't say it because we haven't introduced her
Okay.
yet.
So excited. Put it in the chat.
I am
yes,
right
we'll
now.
talk about it later.
Someone else answer.
Yeah. So, do you want me to answer the other question as well? My favorite character
Yes.
that isn't me. Okay.
Yes.
I think it's a tie between Alana and Jack, honestly, because Jack was so fun to develop with the whole like Carmilla thing, and honestly, I love like just throw Jack wherever. It's like, we need somebody. What's Jack doing? Nothing. Let's have them do something. And then especially like the dimensions that we've given Alana, and again, like a lot of them we haven't introduced yet that are just so fascinating to me that I'm like, oh, okay. But then also again, like very similarly, we just throw you something and then you'll give us like 9 hours of footage, Lauren. And it's just like it's so hard to choose what to use.
I usually
because
cap
it's
it
like-
at 20 minutes for the record, but yes.
Can confirm this last one was 20 minutes.
It is usually
Yeah.
always 20 minutes. I don't know what's so magical about 20 minutes in my head, but like it's usually magically 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are my favorites.
My favorites.
That face.
Like I think it depends on my mood for characters that I play, because if there needs to be like a little fuck you, a little spunk, Jack is gonna win my heart anytime. But I have been waiting so long to get the Fisher Fighter to be something I could talk about, and like the Fisher Fighter is so freeing. Like if the Fisher Fighter wants to go off and talk about building houses and how you need to focus on one thing at a time, sure. And like it lets that aspect of my brain just like free reign, and it's just such a delight. And they are my two brain cells trying to make me a functioning human being. So we get to work with, folks. And I think characters I like, I think that's harder actually, because we haven't seen him in a while, but Sam Eagle Eye
Yeah.
fucking wins my heart every time he comes
Yeah.
on. I'd watched Tyler's Jinglehammer forever. I will never turn down being in a scene with Carmilla or getting to take the piss out of Carmilla. And I have yet to like act opposite of Alana.
No one's acted opposite of Alana. That's the most, or actually, no, the only person who has at this point is Chelsea.
Yeah.
Who, by some miracle, kept a straight face for the 2 hours that we filmed the evening gown match.
But I mean, not even
multiple
like,
times she almost didn't. There were a couple of times she broke, and it was like,
so that's those are like my top 5 or whatever.
Your top, all of them.
My top. I just there are very few characters that I'm like, yeah, sure. You know, like I think one of the amazing things about Scal is how much you just fall in love with all of these people and all of these characters. And everyone does them so well. Go, Lauren!
Oh boy, I had the longest to think about it, and yet, I think my favorite of my 2 characters that have thus far been introduced, or sorry, 3, because now we have Angelica the ref.
Oh yeah,
his name I can never remember.
That's fine.
I think I love fighting as Tarantulas just because I like know how she fights. But Alana is also very near and dear to my heart. I think it's been useful. I think one of the reasons is like because she's very, there is always an in for her if there's a gap in a digital defenestration sketch. So someone's like, but what do we do? And I'm like, so hear me out. What if?
Just throw Alana at it.
What if Alana did something and it's like she's very easy to throw into literally anything, and because her whole thing is that she has no idea what's going on, but she really wants to try, like she like in character fits pretty much everywhere. But I think, like, for example, in the December episode when we had the Christmas Carol parody, and she was like the very spooky ghost of Christmas present, and she's like, death, and then it was like, wait, I don't get, like, I'm confused. I don't understand why. Hold on, the light inside of your chest, but it's dark in your chest, but once you get past all the blood and like, I think I just have so much. I have so much fun screwing around with her, and I think especially because she's more improvisational than Tarantulas. Tarantulas just wants to murder everybody, which is great, and it's like it's so fun to film Tarantulas. It's so fun to have Tarantulas outtakes, just because the vocal difference is always so stark. But yeah, Alana is so much fun. And I think is the most person-like of all my characters, which helps. And one day maybe she'll succeed at her hopes and dreams. To watch. Yeah.
Oh no, wait, that's Tarantulas. Yeah,
that's Tarantulas. Maybe next year. It's really So You Don't Want to Date Her Rapscallion is really just Lauren tries to date other Scal characters. I think my favorite to watch. I love watching Rhonda. Rhonda's always so much fun.
Maya kills out.
Maya has a video game that I've started playing. Maya is a voice actor in a video game, and she's fantastic. I didn't even know it was her while I was playing it. She plays a raven, and it's just like, it's great. She like steals the scene that she's in. Oh,
so good. I do also. Sam is also great. Like the moments that I remember the most from Mime Fight are from Sam. Sam Eagle Eye. Let's go get coffee. I'm so
Put the
lonely.
best piece of chicken in a bucket.
I think about that line all the time.
And I think it's always the people that like understand the character so much and like
understand how to make them exist in reality. Like Carmilla is that way for me too, where like Carmilla, like you were saying, has such a backstory and but also is just like, no, I'm going to be in a baking contest, you know.
Ow.
Yeah. Ow, 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 ow. Yeah, honestly, and I think that's been some of the joys of starting to do more editing for Digital Defenestration is like getting to see other people's takes and like being like, all right, I know I have submitted Ashley and Rachel to hours of me jumping up and down with a keyboard on my butt. So now it's time for me to watch Rachel as Fisher Fighter.
Let me tell you, the ending outtakes are always the hardest because this one, there were like multiple that I was choosing between. It was either this one or there was like a bunch of like B-roll that we took of you and Doug riffing on what the video game was going to look like. And if I had time, I was going to add extras in. I didn't have time. I didn't have energy, so I couldn't do it. And I was just like, oh, I'll put it as the credits. And then I got to Rachel accidentally seducing the fish. And it was just like,
so
nope,
good.
there it is.
So good.
I love that you couldn't hear your half of the conversation on it. So it was just me like realizing and having a moment about my attraction to this.
It took me a moment to realize that too, because I think you filmed the Fisher Fighter stuff on your own. And so like that stuff you were very much like, okay, we're gonna take that bit, we're gonna do it again. Like we gotta give Lauren another take because she's gonna be editing the thing. Okay, like talking to the fish and like you sang a whole song and like just stuff that was just on the floor for no other reason than I was like, this take is 10 seconds shorter than the other one, so we're gonna use this. And so when I saw the Jack after credits, I was like, oh right, Jack was filming by themselves, and I was like, oh no, Ashley is clearly on the other side of this Zoom.
Rachel's not just losing their mind.
All I do is I put your isolated track under you so that I know, like, because we don't need me, and it's going to be more confusing if you can hear me. So I was just like, okay, and I was just like, I'm not going to find the track and sync it up. I was just like, it'll be fine. Everyone will. It worked on its own.
Figure it out.
Because you watched me have the moments.
Yep.
I did love filming Tarantulas with Doug for So You Want to Date a Rapscallion, if only because I think it was my first, if not my like only time I filmed Tarantulas with other people. I'm very prone to self-taping, I think just because it's usually easiest. And like I don't dislike filming with other people. It just ends up being that way. And so I think I always enjoy being like fully in character and then be like, all right, so are we taking that again? I have lipstick all over my cup now, and then being like, I do not like microtransactions. Like that was very fun to bring her back into reality. But Alana just exists in her own reality. That's really the truth of it.
Yeah.
And with that, anything else we want to say about some of our favorite fighters in Scowl?
I just love everyone. But yeah, like I do. Like a lot of these are very much a like, hey, I have this idea for a character. Let's bring in an actor and we'll tell them this. But like the idea is to give them the ability to play, and usually they do. And sometimes, like honestly, Maya has given Rhonda dimensions I didn't even anticipate. Like
I'm so excited. Because it changes how you write for the character too.
Yeah.
Like we got more Rondavisions coming up, and just seeing the stuff Maya's done, and I've been like, okay, game on.
I think about the pandemic gave me time to do XYZ, like self-improvement, not that I needed any, while laying on the couch. I think about that once a week. Like intermittently, whenever I hear self-improvement, I hear like, not that I needed any, but like while also still being like, move right there, all of 2020.
My favorite was during it was the time she scared Greg. Rhonda just all of a sudden starts going into like, what about like a face versus face match? Yeah, that'd be intense. And it's just like, what the hell is this? Like, what is happening?
Where you rip each other's faces off. That's right.
What?
I think that was an OG self-isolation devastation, wasn't it? Yeah.
I don't know.
I only
Yeah.
say that because I'm pretty sure I combed through those clips. Like,
That was one of the first, if it wasn't isolation devastation.
Yeah.
That was real early on.
Yeah, I think maybe it was November, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
You're totally right because
Yeah.
there was like a fall theme going on in the
Mhm.
background. Greg is also
Anyway.
one of my favorite running gags. Greg is like one of my favorite running jokes of just like random person doing the things, and it's great.
Greg was a Silas creation. Silas is really good at this. I can't wait for them to Greg was Silas. Silas was like, hey, like it was Greg Silas gave us this script where Jinglehammer's talking to an intern and it was just like, yeah, okay. And that's where Greg came from.
I miss him.
Yeah.
I miss Glow.
Also a Greg line I think of once a week. And with that, I think that will conclude our talk back this month. Please, please, please follow us on the socials, scowlfight.com. Please consider donating to our digital tip jar at paypal.me/scowlfight. I'm not reading it off the banner that's going on at the bottom of the screen. You're reading it off the banner at the bottom of the screen, which is what you should be doing anyway. If you want to follow us, follow the socials and come back for more. Our next episode of Digital Defenestration will be on June 28th. I always check my phone. June 28th at 7 p.m. Follow scowlfight.com for more. And as always, stay scowly. Butts. Butts.